Hello, and welcome to Hold the Pass, a podcast all about passing on knowledge, info, stories, and fun facts about the world of motorsport among friends. My name is Misha.
And my name is Fatima.
And we had so much fun doing our solo episode about the Japanese Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago that we decided to do that again. So, in that episode, we briefly touched on Formula One fandom, which is an absolutely fascinating topic from a historical perspective, a mental perspective on what motivates us as fans, the way the fandom has or hasn't changed and evolved over time. There is so much to dig into, which is exactly what we are going to be doing today.
Misha, you know I love talking about Formula One fans and understanding the mechanics behind the modern day Formula One fan. I would say that you're pretty fascinated by F1 fans too, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as an F1 fan, how could you not want to know more about what other fans are like all over the world, what they're doing?
It's just like I think I just really like understanding fan culture in media in any form of entertainment, may that be sport or may it be movies, TV shows, etc., etc. But because we are a Formula One based channel for now, wink wink, I really want to get into the nitty gritty of it. So as we know, Formula One fans are the heart of the sport. Formula One fans have always had a passion like no other. I mean, we've seen the national pride that Ferrari brings to the Tifosi. I mean, what is that infamous quote from Will Buxton where he goes, "There's two religions in Italy, the Catholic Church and Ferrari." He ate that. By the way, I just have to say, he actually ate that up. And I'm pretty sure he's the one who coined that quote. If I'm correct, I tried.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
That is, he's great at coming up with quotes. That was
What was the
one
other
of his
one?
best.
Where he talks about the spoon?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's when Haas brings, I feel like he was talking about Haas.
I think so.
It's
I think
bringing
so.
a spoon to a knife fight or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds very much like something he would say.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, he really and truly that quote, and then obviously for not Ferrari, Sebastian Vettel's "Everyone is a Ferrari fan." Yeah, it's true. Everyone really is a Ferrari fan, even if you're not a Ferrari fan, you kind of are. It's just Ferrari. But this video is not about Ferrari. This video is about Formula One fans in general. And yeah, like I said, the passion that Formula One fans bring to the sport is like no other. And I do believe that F1 fans make the sport as magical as it is. And, that's not something that's ever changed in the history of the sport, with or without the internet, with or without big media broadcasters. I mean, what makes Formula One so appealing, I think, to fans is that it's just so unique. You have friendship, you have drama, you have history, there's controversy, there's competition, there's loyalty, there's STEM. And of course, there is the need for speed, Misha,
Of course.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so unique, and that's what kind of draws in so many different people from so many different areas of the world and so many different lifestyles, because there's a little bit of something for everybody when it comes to Formula One. What I really wanted to talk about, though, was Formula One and its VIP guests, because that is a point of contention sometimes for some people. It's a point of conversation a lot. And as Formula One grows, Misha, we've seen more and more VIP guests at each Grand Prix. I mean, we've seen star athletes, star actors and actresses, singers, supermodels. Misha, we've even seen royalty at races such as Monaco. We've seen it all, I would say, at this point. I mean, Grand Prix such as Monaco, Vegas, Silverstone, it is star-studded. And now so influencer studded as well, because that's just the age that we're in. And with that comes a lot of conversation on if those VIP guests deserve, for audio listeners, quote unquote, deserve to be there. And there's lots of conversation on if they are actually even fans of the sport. personally, for me, I don't know about you, but it's never bothered me on who attends a Grand Prix and if they deserve to be there or not, because really and truly, it's not changing my life in any way. However, I do understand why a lot of people have those conversations. It just doesn't really affect me that much.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not.
Yeah.
It doesn't change how I enjoy the sport either.
Exactly. I think that's really what it is. It doesn't change
Yeah.
how I enjoy the sport. But I do have to say that I think it's proven at this point that, Formula One was made by the affluent for the affluent. And while things have certainly changed in the modern age, I think what's always been a part of Formula One has been the affluent nature of it, the rich and the famous, the VIP guests. Like, did you know that at the very first Formula One Grand Prix, way back in 1950, way back before our time,
Oh God.
there was some special VIP attendees there.
Ooh, really?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. It was the British royal family. And I'm talking about King George, Queen Elizabeth, the mother specifically, and Princess Margaret, amongst other royals. Now, listen,
Wow.
if that didn't set precedent for the affluent to attend Formula One Grand Prix, then I don't know what would. So I do think it's safe to say that the trend of celebrities going to Grand Prix has never and will never change. I do have to say that, like, obviously, like, the Royals, it's like complete, especially at that time, a completely different stratosphere than what it is now. Sure, like, if the British royal family were to attend Formula One Grand Prix right now, it would still make big news. But, like, imagine, like, 1950, the very first race,
Yeah.
Like, imagine what they were thinking when that had happened. But I do think it is funny because there is a subset of fans that we never really think about, and that is the celebrity. And I think that's truly because of their celebrity status. But I mean, at the end of the day, everyone loves a good sport. Doesn't matter if you are a quote unquote celebrity or not. And yes, while we are in an era where obviously many celebrities do get invited for marketing and promotion purposes, but I mean, we've seen some great repeat celebrities over the years. I think one prominent one who legit works with F1 now is Terry Crews.
Yeah.
And for me, how I imagine Formula One fans and like Formula One marketing to be when it comes to the fans is kind of similar to tennis. I think they're two sides of the same coin in the sense that tennis fans, they're very passionate, but I would say that it's more of a quiet passion, whereas Formula One fans are very loud. And that's just also the nature of the sport as well, too. Like, you shouldn't be screaming at a tennis match.
Oh. No.
You probably shouldn't. But I say that to say that both sports, I think, kind of market towards the same audience. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good comparison. I'm also like a lifelong tennis fan, and there is a really, really big difference in terms of the culture of the two fandoms. I think tennis fans can get rowdy. Like if you go to Serbia when Novak Djokovic wins, that's a whole different ball game. But for the most part, tennis in general has this kind of like image of being more of a reserved sport. Like the reason why I learned this actually, the reason why they wear white at Wimbledon, and this used to be like over every single tennis championship, is because you don't see sweat on white fabric. And that's like that's not we can't look sweaty. We can't look sweaty. So tennis has this very kind of like chin up, like uppity almost reputation. Maybe not so much anymore, but it certainly did in the past. Whereas F1, it's really interesting because it also, and you touched on this a bit, it also started as like a rich people sport. Mm-hmm. It also very much started as a rich people sport, particularly with its roots in like the European races, mm-hmm. which I think is really interesting. So I do like that comparison a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reason and why it started off as a rich people sport is because Formula One itself, like, is just expensive. So it would make sense. Like, the average person, especially back in like 1950, couldn't afford spare parts for a car and then just like
Yeah.
race in their free time. You know what I mean? So like I completely get that. And like we said, like it's definitely changed over the years where it's accessible to everyone, and we'll definitely get more into that. But I think it's cool. I mean, honestly, I think, you know what's funny to me, it's like there's also people who aren't famous who go and they know nothing about this sport too, like,
That's so true.
you know. And you know, it's really funny, I remember last year at the Vegas Grand Prix, you know, there was a lot of influencers that were invited. Like there was a lot of conversation about that, and I think there is space for that conversation as well too. I do, because there's certain Grand Prix where I'm just like, I know what this Grand Prix is for, you know. So I, like I said, it's nothing for me because I know exactly what this Grand Prix is for, what it's marketed for, yada yada yada. And I think Vegas is one of them. However, it's really funny because there was a lot of influencers and a couple of I guess content creators that I follow. And I remember there was one of them who knew nothing about Formula One prior to, and then like after they went, they were talking about how much they really enjoyed it. And I'm like, you see, look at us.
Yeah.
It turns people into fans, which I like because I think the more the merrier, truly.
No, honestly, and I agree. Like, so what if you're not a fan? You're going to leave as an F1 fan. Like, at the end of the day, we all leave as F1 fans.
Yeah. And some people just like the nature of like the dressing up to go to a Grand Prix, which I would love, like the dressing up and like meeting people and like things like that. Because that is another part of Formula One that like we have to actually talk about, where it's like you see the what are they called, the paddock club, like, and you see like that's a whole other area that like F1 markets to, and like there's a lot of people who enjoy that side of things too. So like as much as it is about the racing, it's also about the overall picture of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the
experience.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually funny that you mentioned that because I was going through this survey. F1 does a survey every about 4 years or so on the audience, just to kind of get a gauge of where their fans are. And one of the things that really stood out to me is how much of an importance current fans place on sponsorships.
Mm-hmm.
And like collaborations and things like that. Like a majority of fans actually find sponsorships, collabs, and like those kinds of interactions to be like a key part of the Formula One experience. Cool. So getting, like you said, like people who don't like just the racing, but also like the dressing up, the culture, like all of that kind of ties into that as well, which I think is really interesting. But at the same time, I also find it fascinating to see how celebrity guests are being used to appeal to or try to appeal to fans. Like, there was a point very, very recently in the past where a lot of attention was being put on the attendees of the race, like the famous attendees, the celebrities in the paddock, to the point that Carlos Sainz called it out, saying that the broadcast should focus less on driver girlfriends and famous people in the paddock and more on the race. Because we ended up missing like a bunch of overtakes on track because we were like watching someone's girlfriend or like a famous person watching the overtake. And on the one hand, I get why showing these people might seem like a good strategy to get others' attention, but that's not what draws fans in, and that's not what keeps us around, right? F1, like I said, they did the survey of its audience just recently. It came out towards the end of last year, and they showed that legacy fans, who are fans that have been around for like 6+ years, what they really love is the history, the heritage, the performance for them. And by performance, I think what they mean is like the performance of the cars, not like performers. Like that's what really draws them to the sport. And then newer fans, they're driven by the personalities on track. They're driven by storytelling. They're driven by strategy and how the races are unfolding and things like that. So in both cases, we don't really care who else is on track unless they're directly involved in the sport. And it goes to what you and I were saying, like, it doesn't affect us. Like, we don't really care if there's an influencer or not there. So I think it was like 90% of the people that they surveyed, and they surveyed over 100,000 people. 90% of them said that they were emotionally invested in the outcomes of the race. So, of course, there are other things, like we said, there's things directly tied to the sport, like the drivers, the team identity, and so on. There's also sponsorships. There's the fan culture, the fashion culture around it, the paddock clubs, all of that. All of those do contribute to why we love Formula One. But at the end of the day, it's the speed. It's the thrill of the race. Those are the things that we want to see. And that's what, at the end of the day, unites us all as fans.
Oh, absolutely. Don't talk to me about if my driver had a bad race. My entire day is done. Like,
I know. Like, I'll just get like a voice message from you just ranting. It's great.
I actually, that survey is really interesting. About like the legacy fans versus like the newer fans. I actually think that's so true, because I know when I first got into Formula One, I was definitely more into kind of what like a newer fan is drawn by, which quickly changed, by the way, as know. For me at least, like in the sense where now I'm more so, I love the history of Formula One and motorsport in general. So that's what drives me. And I love seeing like legacy teams such as McLaren, Ferrari, and Williams, and how they're doing in the race in the race and the season and the standings and things like that, and the performance. Like, so I actually think that's really fascinating. I do think as fans come in, especially with how Formula One is promoted right now, you see the big push for like obviously like Drive to Survive, which we'll talk about later. You see the F1 movie, and now that they're going to be showing some races in the theaters, like you see I know, you see the big push for like that entertainment side, and I think that's what brings people in, and like that's what people find really compelling at first. But like, there's only so much that can do if you want to retain viewers. Like the sport has to be at the forefront and the heart of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. But I also kind of want to go into what really fascinates me about fan culture in Formula One specifically, and that's the internet and how fans interact with the sport. I could do a dissertation on this. Like, I genuinely could, and I think I will do something regarding like the internet and fan culture. So I'm not going to go completely in depth today, because that requires a lot of research for what I really want to talk about. However, the era of the internet and kind of what I wanted to talk to you about was how Formula One fan presence has evolved over the past 20 years specifically, because that's my experience in internet life. I was not born for the inception of the internet.
Really?
What would you say, Misha, if I told you that live posting during a race wasn't a new thing?
Interesting. What do you mean? Tell me more.
I will tell you more, my dear friend. I would say that live posting during a Grand Prix weekend did not start with the introduction of Twitter. It did not start with the introduction of Facebook, Reddit, or Threads. In fact, it has been going on since the beginning of the internet. I came across this lovely, lovely form about a year ago. And when I tell you, Misha, it is like a time capsule. I'm so obsessed like with going through the form and just like going through like posts. It's so, I don't know, there's just something about it that makes me really happy. And the fun thing is that this form is still active. It's not used as much as it was back in the early 2000s, but it's still going strong. And I think it's like all the OGs.
Oh my god. Wait, that's so cool.
I know. I think it's all the OGs who were on it back in the day who probably still use it, which is really cute to me. But as you mentioned earlier in our last solo episode, we did briefly discuss about how Formula One has kind of never changed when it comes to the things that we as fans or discuss, or teams and drivers talk about. And I do still stand by that. Like, for instance, in this online forum, the pinned post on it from the moderators way back in 2006, it goes, no team or driver in F1 is above criticism. There is a line between not agreeing with the viewpoint and bashing for the sake of it. Please remember where that line is. We encourage criticism of any parties involved in F1 as long as it is reasoned and isn't posted with malice or agenda. And wow. I just have to say, if you go on Twitter, if you go on Threads or like a Facebook group or a Reddit thread,
Yeah.
or Reddit thread, I would say that there may not be a pinned post per se, but we have seen this same exact sentiment float around, especially after a controversial Grand Prix. I mean, heck, we've seen it with teams and their statements that they throw out as well. There's a post dated from April 27th, 2000 entitled "The F1 Slaughter of Innocent Wildlife Continues." And in this post, it discussed the Spanish Grand Prix where in practice, Giancarlo Fisichella struck a cat that found its way to track, which is obviously, very, very sad for that cat.
Yeah, poor cat.
I know, actually, really sad.
Yeah.
But I bring this up because we still see similar conversations about wildlife on track, especially if you're on Twitter, and especially during the Canadian Grand Prix. I mean,
yep.
We haven't had too many instances. I think there was one recently, but aside from that one, we haven't had too many where, wildlife was really struck. I think, was it Leclerc who struck something recently?
I think there was a lizard.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
I remember in the recent year or two.
Yeah.
Wildlife was struck. But recently we've been quite lucky where you see there was a lizard that was running on track. And
Where was that? That was towards the end of the year. That was
I think so.
Yeah.
That was
and
so
then
cute.
They had him setting purple sectors.
That was honestly that. I thought that was really cute, but
that was so good.
I bring that to say, it's just so funny how, from 2000 to 2026, we're having these conversations. And another great post that I wanted to share with you was one that was made on July 4th, 2006, and it's titled, "Williams, Will They Ever Return to the Glory Days?" And to that poster, I just have to say, buckle up, buddy, because it's going to be a wild ride. I mean, there's a couple wins. There's a couple wins.
There's a couple wins.
When I say a couple, I mean I can count them on one hand.
Yeah, no, literally a couple of wins.
However, but I wonder how that person feels in this 2026.
Oh God.
I know.
I shudder to think about the posts Ferrari fans were making in the late 2000s.
Oh my gosh.
Or early 2010s.
Posts talking about there was one talking about Kimi, not Antonelli. He wasn't born. There was a post talking about Kimi Räikkönen in the early.
No. Oh my God.
Did you just clock what I was trying to say?
Wait, is this forum older than Antonelli?
Oh, honey. Yeah. It is. This is an old forum.
Okay. I'm fine.
Yeah, no, this forum, there was a post about Kimi Räikkönen, and it was early 2000s before Räikkönen even stepped foot in Ferrari. And it's Räikkönen made the right choice not to go to Ferrari. He shouldn't be under Michael Schumacher's shadow, yada, yada, yada. I'm oh, lo and behold and lo, just wait a couple of years. He will be there.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
I know, but it's just really cute. You'll even see in the forum requests for fan meetups at certain Grand Prix. And I don't know about you, Misha, but there's just something really comforting about knowing that no matter how much Formula One evolves, we as fans have always had the same kind of conversations, no matter what year or era that we're in.
No, it's so true. And I think what makes that all the more special is because we have so many different generations of fans, having gone through such similar experiences over and over again, you kind of get to bond over it, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a Williams fan from the 2000s who's going to be talking to a Williams fan that's brand new to the sport, and they're both going to be like, what is our team?
Yeah, honestly. I remember there was a post that I did a couple months ago when I was doing my videos about controversies, and I was talking about the I think it was, I could be wrong, I think it was a 2005 US GP or 2006 US GP when only 4 cars started. And I was I made a post on Threads, and I was imagine seeing that happen in real time. And I had a whole bunch of people who were there could respond back talking about what it was like. And I was that's crazy.
That's so cool.
I know.
That is actually so cool. I love that. But
Yeah.
I think what's really great is that online media is clearly bringing fans together from all over the world, from everywhere. And online content has become increasingly important in the fan space. Like, if we're seeing it be such a hub of conversation back in the early 2000s, now it is so much more of a central point to the fandom experience. That survey that I mentioned earlier, actually 64% of the people that were surveyed said that social media is important to them for accessing F1 content. And this is like, that number is like more than twice as high from what it was back in 2017. So we are, as fans, using the internet more and more and more. And this is especially true of younger generations, like Gen Z and yeah, like newer incoming fans, and women too are also like very, very drawn to social media as well, which is really cool to see. But as wild as the internet can be, the one beautiful thing about it is, like I said, it brings us all together from across the world. And as you know, Fatima, this sport really does have such a global following. And especially in recent years, it has become so much more diverse and so much more international and beautiful. And it's great. And as you said, F1 did start in Europe. It started as a sport for the rich and for the affluent. Obviously, it's a very expensive sport with a high cost of entry. And in its early iterations, it was held mostly in Europe. So it was mostly followed by European fans, so like rich white people. Like, now today, in terms of continental regions, Europe still does make up like the biggest portion of F1 fans. So again, in F1's survey of its audience, about 49% of its respondents were from Europe. But there were also respondents from like 186 countries in total, which is almost every single country in the world.
That's crazy.
That's insane. It's like 93 to 95% of all of the countries that
Oh,
exist.
buddy.
I know, like, I don't know. I mean, I know soccer definitely
Oh, yeah.
is
That's
like,
probably like the top
soccer's
five.
untouchable in terms of international fandom, but this is really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in terms of countries, the US was the most represented in this particular survey. I do want to caveat this. It could be because there is genuinely a massive fandom in the US. It could also be because the survey was done in collaboration with the Motorsport Network, which is based out of Florida. So like that could have like easily affected distribution and like participation. But still, with that in mind, like it's still really great to see that, you know,
Mhm.
the amount of international representation we're seeing is absolutely growing. And it's true that F1 fans are growing in number. They're becoming more diverse. They're, in terms of their nationality, their ethnicity, their gender, even their age, with a lot of newer fans skewing quite young. Like I said, Gen Z women, they are one of the fastest growing demographics of the F1 community. And this has been cited by so many different news outlets and so many journalists and reporters and influencers that this is the case. But what I really, really like about all of this is that as the F1 calendar expands and as coverage of it increases, we are seeing more and more of this diversity in a cultural aspect of the F1 fandom. You have the incredible costumes at the Japanese Grand Prix that the F1 fans make, and that's clearly like rooted in cosplay culture in Japan. And we talked about this in our Japanese Grand Prix episode, so go check that out. There's the sea of orange that you see at the Dutch Grand Prix, and orange being the national color of the Netherlands. You see it in the passion of the Italian fans in Monza. And F1 is also starting to lean into it with its own activations and its events held during races, like in Mexico, where there's like a ton of Latin music. There's mariachi performances. It happens towards the fall, so there's a ton of celebrations adjacent to Day of the Dead. Like that race weekend basically becomes a cultural, like, national event.
Yeah.
And so as F1 is continuing to expand, I hope we get to see more of that, because there are very few sports, like we said, that have such a global audience and that can reach so many people the way F1 can.
That is some really cool stuff. And I just have to say, Dream Grand Prix, I have a couple, but Brazil and Mexico,
yes.
My gosh.
Oh my God.
My gosh. And Singapore will always be like in my top 3. So I think that's actually straight up my top 3. Brazil, Mexico, Singapore. Like
that is a solid top 3, yeah.
And Spa is very close. We spoke about Spa in our Atlanta video, which you guys should also watch. That dropped earlier this week, which will be last week for you guys. But that is so fascinating. And you know what? I also need to make a plea to Formula One to make the title credits like match the countries that they're in again, because that is so cool. Like the Mexican Grand Prix when they oh my God, it's so beautiful. And then also, do you remember, like, have you seen the one from like back in the day for the South Korean Grand Prix when they
no, I haven't.
You haven't, Misha?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna send it to you after this.
Okay, please
like,
do.
You haven't seen the title credits for the South Korean Grand Prix? Like,
no.
I'm pretty sure it was the South Korean Grand Prix. I'm like 99% sure it was, but I will send it to you. But I'm begging Formula One to get back into that. I think, was it last year or the year before last with the Mexican Grand Prix, where I think fans were talking about the title credits so much that they incorporated it again into it?
I think that was 2024, because I think it was, because I feel like I remember being disappointed one year because they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2024.
I think it was 2024, because I'm pretty sure Checo was still on the grid.
It must have been 2024.
For Checo to be back and for the Mexican Grand Prix again for him. I know. And I also want to go back to when we were talking about celebrities in like F1 and things like that, because I don't know if you mentioned it, but I know we kind of discussed it briefly, where songs were mentioning Formula One drivers, such as Bad Bunny's Monaco, where he mentions Checo. Does he also mention in that song as well, too? I can't remember. Great song, by the way. Love Bad Bunny. And finally, I kind of want to go on to talk about, and you actually did mention this a couple minutes ago, and I think we're kind of talking about similar things in this, but like I have to talk about the Formula One boom due to a little show called Drive to Survive, and how that changed F1 fan culture completely, and how it shifted how fans interact with drivers and teams. Now, I do have to say, what I find really special about Drive to Survive is it did change Formula One, but I think it changed motorsport in general. I think it brought on a wave of fans to different series, not just Formula One, which I appreciate about Drive to Survive specifically. But prior to Liberty Media acquiring the sport back in, I'm pretty sure it was 2017, there were only a few streams in which you could watch Formula One. And this did alienate a lot of viewership in different countries and regions. I mean, Formula One was a popular sport pre-acquisition, but it was also heavily gatekept by its previous owners. I mean, as well as you can gatekeep an international sport, it was gatekept.
Yeah.
Broadcasts would feature many commercial breaks, which is tough in any sports broadcast. It's why I can't watch American football, because there's just too much commercial breaks in it. However, having commercial breaks is the name of the game when it comes to a lot of sports. So it's understandable, don't get me wrong, but it's really difficult in motorsport, in Formula One specifically, where things can happen in a split second. Like, imagine the minute you go to a commercial break is right when a great overtake happens or someone crashes out, like, you know, and then it's like, well, that's the entire reason you're watching the sport, right? So there also wasn't so much access to the paddock or behind the scenes goings, and there wasn't any F1 TV prior to the Liberty Media acquisition, which is crazy because I would not be able to survive without F1 TV as an F1 fan. I love F1 TV. It is the greatest thing.
Canada, please never get rid of F1 TV. Please.
If you want to get rid of anything else, just don't get rid of
Just don't get rid of F1 TV.
So I say all of this to say that prior to Liberty Media, Formula One was kind of like on a need to know basis in a way. So when Drive to Survive dropped at a time when, obviously everyone was home due to COVID, unfortunately, you can imagine how this would catch people's attention. It was the first of its kind on a grand scale specifically, where we got to see the personalities of the drivers, see the insight of the teams, the mechanics of the sport in depth. And I don't know about you, but I think of, and I'm sure the drivers probably likes to not think of it like this, but I think of Drive to Survive as part reality show, part documentary. Right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Like that's the vibe.
I think that's the vibe. I know they want it to be like strictly documentary, but come on. It's part reality show, if we're gonna be honest. But I think what's cool about it being kind of like in that way is that it does appeal to different groups of people, hence the new audience that the sport now has, as you mentioned earlier in the survey. It's definitely brought in a younger audience, and which we know that is something that Formula One was looking to get. And it brought in the North American audience to stay this time because they have been trying for many years to keep the American audience. And I think they finally got the American audience for good.
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, Formula One fans have shifted from that boys club that, it once originally was to a more inclusive one where we do know that women now make a really big chunk of the fandom. And you're seeing people, as you mentioned, from all different areas of the world, different socioeconomic classes, really get into watching the Grand Prix. And I think that's what I love about this era of Formula One and fandom that we're in. It's still a niche sport in its own right. And I say that it's a niche sport because I know that could be controversial for some people, but I say that it's a niche sport because if I talk to for instance, I've talked to a couple of people over the past few weeks about my things that I like to do, and I would say Formula One, and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, to me, I'm like, "How do you not know what Formula One is?" Because it's my life. And then I remember I was like to someone, I was like, "Oh, and Lewis Hamilton's my favorite driver." They're like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "He has 44 million followers on Instagram." I know, but it's still so niche in its own right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what I like about it is that we can connect with people from all over the world, like you mentioned, who wake up at ungodly hours of the night or day to watch past cars really go around. Let's be so for real. But of course, like any sport, it does have its toxic side, and we cannot ignore that. I think we could have a whole discussion about that. But overall, if you do ignore the chronically online and actually speak to fans, outside fans who have attended races or fan events, or even just a casual fan, you'll see that there's a lot of respect for the sport, and you'll see that there's a lot of respect between the different fans of the sport, and the people who make it what it is, even if we support opposing teams or opposing drivers. Overall, I do think it is quite a respectful sport, and the fan base is quite respectful if you take away the crazy online presence.
I 100% agree with you. And it's actually interesting that you mentioned how it's become more accessible with Liberty Media. Because if I recall correctly, didn't Lewis Hamilton once get in trouble for posting a selfie or something?
Lewis Hamilton got in trouble for everything. That's another video. But
that's another video. We could do an entire video on that.
Do you remember it's really funny that you bring him up because I was actually talking to my sisters about him recently because they just think they're not into Formula One, but because I yap about it and I yap about Lewis Hamilton so much, they just always they tell me funny things about it. But I was telling my sisters I bet you Lewis Hamilton regrets how chronically online he was back in the day.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's Snapchat.
Oh my god, yeah. I saw one of his old snaps. Somebody posted it on Reddit, and they're like, "Bet he regrets this."
I'm telling you, I know he does. And I don't know if you remember when Jensen Button were teammates. And do you know that when he tweeted about Jensen Button?
Wait, what did he tweet? I missed that.
He was so messy. I think they were teammates, or this is right when they stopped being teammates. He made a tweet talking about, funny how Jensen Button doesn't follow me on Twitter, yada, yada, yada. And then he was like, "Oh, my bad." He he does.
Lewis, no, you can't leave receipts like that.
I know, or like when he posted like the telemetry of like, I think it was his telemetry versus Nico's with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he got in trouble for all of those things because Bernie, we know, he had a tight grip on the drivers back when he was owner of F1. So Liberty Media has definitely given drivers freedom, but it's really funny because you can see how like, and I think Lewis Hamilton's a really good example because you can see how once they were kind of like pushing for that when they were starting to sell it, because I'm sure like these conversations were happening prior to the 2017 acquisition, like they knew obviously these conversations were going on for a while, and like social media boom, you see how like drivers were really chronically online at a certain point, and then post Drive to Survive, you see how they're back to like kind of being like kind of offline and more media trained in a sense, so I think that's actually kind of really interesting how they were really online and like fans really got to know them like through that, and then like post the show, like they really only do like sponsor posts, if we're going to be honest.
It's true. And I think social media kind of gives this impression that you have like constant access to your favorite drivers and like you can constantly interact with them. But because it's gotten to this like breaking point where everyone is always watching them online, they kind of have to pull back. So in a way, yes, we have more access, but we don't.
Yeah.
Because of the degree of media training.
I agree with that completely. I don't know. I think fan culture and like studying fan culture is just so fascinating. Formula One, any sport, in general.
Fandom in general.
Yeah, fandom in general. It's just really cool to like kind of get the behind the scenes of it. But that's all I have for you today, Misha. Do you have anything else for me?
I don't think so. I did just want to mention something really fun. I think it's fun. A fun fact about what's been drawing people in since you talked about Drive to Survive. And Drive to Survive draws in, according to that survey that we keep referencing, draws in about 10 to 16% of the total audience, like depending on which demographic you're looking at, which is a sizable chunk. Yeah. But what's also really heartwarming to see is that the most common way people are introduced to F1 still remains friends and family, with nearly like 40% of people being like, oh yeah, I heard about it from like a friend.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Really cool. You know what? I agree with that. And because I think there's a lot of people that it's really funny because like now that all my friends know that like I'm a really big Formula One fan, like they'll like start like recognizing things Formula One related, and they'll like bring it up to me. They're like, oh my god, yeah, it's really growing as a sport, and like they'll kind of like keep an eye on it a little bit. Even people that I'm not like super close with, like I'll have like some people that I know from like way back in the day, and they'll send me like funny Formula One memes. I'm like, oh, my heart.
That's so sweet. It's connecting us with our old friends.
Honestly. And one more thing I want to say about this, because I'm pretty sure you also saw it in the survey as well, is social media being a big draw. Like you'll see how you'll see how like people on social media will talk about how they got into Formula One because they saw a TikTok about it, and they're like, that's cool, and bam, now they're fans. Like I think it's so cool how people get brought into the sport, and then I also think it's cool what makes them stay as well.
Yes, exactly. I 100% agree with you. It's like you said, fandom culture in general is so fascinating to think about and to study and to learn about. And Formula One, its fans are a unique breed in the best sense.
And that's all we have for you all today. Thank you so much for sitting here and watching this. And if you're listening on audio, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on Instagram at Hold the Past Pod, and you can find us on TikTok at Hold the Past Pod as well, and anywhere you listen to your podcast from. You can also reach out to us at holdthepastpodcast@gmail.com should you wish to connect with us as well. Thank you all so much. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please don't forget to share. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.